Welcome everyone to another episode of Around the Block Talk. Today we have with us Mr. Siddharth. He's a digital economy lawyer and has specialized in regulations around crypto and blockchain and has been working in the field for a few years now. So very happy to have you here today with us, Siddharth, and very excited to hear what you have to share with us.
Thank you, Pratik. Apart from that, I have also authored a book if someone would like to read about regulations related to blockchain technology. And I'm also an advisor and sort of a co-founder in startup called Wealthisle, which deals with fractionalized NFTs and basically it aspires to be a mutual fund or a hedge fund in crypto space through decentralization, no centralization involved. I did my BTech from Dhirubhai Ambani Law from Jindal Global University and currently pursuing my MBA from ISP. Um, I have been an avid investor in crypto space. My first investment was back in 2015 when I purchased my first cryptocurrency.
That sounds great, Siddharth. So you spent a few years in the industry, and I believe you have uh, some insights on how the regulations around it would work. So we can move ahead to the topic today. That would be regulations around blockchain and crypto.
So there are no specific regulations. There are very limited regulations around crypto per se. So one of the regulations that is very explicit is with respect to advertisements. So ASCII came up with a code where you have to basically say that cryptocurrencies are not quick rich schemes, and you have to be careful while purchasing any sort of cryptocurrency or a digital asset per se. And it was promulgated by ASCII 3 months back. Uh, Apart from that, there is another regulation with respect to taxation, which is very explicit, which entails taxing digital assets. So the word that they are using continuously in all the regulation is not cryptocurrency or something like that. It is digital asset. The It means that intent of the parliament of the legislature is to make it sort of very broad and cover everything. uh, so with respect to taxes, we have to pay 1% tax on every transaction, and which is very cumbersome, and that is why we are watching huge outflows of cryptos in foreign currencies, people adopting USDT. So government basically triggered that movement from shift from centralized exchange to decentralized exchange. So initially they wanted like if it would have been central banks, governments would have gained a lot of taxes, but they cannot do that now because it becomes impossible to track where the money is going. Second is 30% capital gains, and even in my previous talks on other shows, I've said that people who make money through cryptos, the source of money from where we are making the money, it does not matter, and you still have to pay taxes if you have earned some profits, even if it is from dacoity. You have to give a taxman would come to your door, knock and say that please pay my taxes, and like rest other regulations can deal with themselves. So 30% uh, on capital gains basically. And so the code has been very comprehensive. And third one, which explicitly mentions cryptocurrencies, is Companies Act, which says that any dealing with crypto, or if the company is holding crypto, then they have to declare it. The company has to declare it on their balance sheets, or have to declare that they have made certain transactions. So apart from that, there are no explicit mention of crypto related regulations, although there are a lot of uh, indirect regulations. For example, Foreign Exchange Management Act, cross-border transaction as to how you take uh, move crypto from one jurisdiction to another, and jurisdictional issue is a very different ball game in this space. So, would you like me to would you like me to talk about this as well?
Yes, yes, sure. And we'll follow up later.
Okay. So, okay, so with respect to cross-border transaction, once we move an asset uh, from one jurisdiction to another, Foreign Exchange Management Act becomes applicable. So what this entails is you need explicit permission from RBI to move assets around the world. Like it is not legal to just move assets without permission of RBI. But blockchain has definitely changed that, because where so earlier what used to happen was, to determine the jurisdiction of an asset, you just said, okay, so wherever the server is located, there we will assume the jurisdiction is. But now that is a case no longer, because in blockchain it is all about decentralization, and no one can determine where the correct jurisdiction is, and it convolutes the matter. And because of lack of jurisdiction, you would see a lot of exchanges, like just shifting their basis from India. Even WazirX was served a notice by ED, because they alleged that, okay, some rules were broken, some laws were broken. How did those laws basically break? They failed to report as to who were the users who took their money to Binance, or which money was coming to India, and there was no record of the same. So taxman comes and says, whom should I tax? How do I tax that? So the application of FEMA is everywhere, and now there is application of KYC norms as well. KYC norms are there to prevent money laundering, anti-terrorist funding, etc. And you would see a lot of cases on various P2P platforms related to this. So, for example, what happens is, in a P2P transaction, if you are a person, I purchase USDT from you, transfer INR to your wallet, and you transfer USDT to my wallet, and basically Binance or WazirX can act as a escrow. The problem is with respect to limited KYC, in which if you use the money for some sort of terrorist activity, for money laundering activities, I could be implicated. And I have seen this in my clients, where they are getting where they are being served notices, because the police says that you are not compliant at all, and because the money was used for, say, terrorist activities or cheating or any other offense for that matter, you are also implicated in the same. And this also is a huge issue as to how do you do KYC. People often relate crypto to a new technology, which could be used to make payments. The problem is Payments and Settlement Act, and you need to determine what payment is. Can crypto actually become a payment? Is it Can it be considered a legal tender in India? So there is a lot of misconception around internet that it is like a payment mechanism, but it is not recognized by government in India. It is recognized by some South African countries, maybe Ecuador and El Salvador. Lot of countries are coming up with these regulations, especially in African region, but it's not happening anywhere else, and it will take time. I truly believe that it would be like we would go back to pegging our fiat currency to some sort of underlying, and crypto serves to be a very nice use case regarding this. But until that is happening, I do not think that there is any underlying mechanism for it being called a legal tender, where it is not recognized by the government. The most important issue faced by most of the cryptocurrencies across the world is with respect to it being called security. There is a distinction between security token or a utility token. So it is a very interesting subject matter. If a cryptocurrency is categorized as security token, then security like SEBI in India or similar organizations in USA, they can have jurisdiction over the issue. The biggest problem with respect to the same is now you have to be compliant with security laws. It needs to be registered. And how do you register a crypto? How do you test whether a or a digital asset for that matter is a security or not? You test it using Howey's test. So it basically lays down steps as to how it shall be tested, and you test it accordingly. If it is not limited to crypto, even a digital asset can be classified as security for that matter. For example, I'm dealing with fractionalized NFTs. Now there is a very compelling argument that these would be considered securities under US law. But what about Indian laws? We do not have any clarity. Although Indian laws have on a couple of occasions considered Howey's test. So does it mean that in future they would apply Howey's test to crypto? The problem is the implication of categorizing an asset as securities are too high, and like penalties are too high. The problem is uh, if they are if they are considered if they are considered cryptos or sorry, if they are considered securities and people are non-compliant, so the implications of it being considered a security are too high if they are considered securities. So what happens is you have, apart from registration, if the penalties are too high, it has to be explicitly stated in law. It has to be stated in black letter of law. It cannot be with respect to case laws or arbitrary manner, because someone's livelihood is depending on it. So if you earn, say, if the transaction worth of 2 crores take place and you are fined 6 crores, it means that it is a punitive action that is being taken, and it cannot happen arbitrarily, especially in India. The jurisdictional issues, the utility versus security debate, it's very cumbersome, and India still has not adopted to the same. We still see all our the brain drain happening again. So it happened with when Web 2.0 was there, right? The people just moving abroad uh, because they thought that India was not Web 2.0 friendly jurisdiction, and we see similar trends in Web 3.0, and we are losing out on a huge opportunity, and government is not realizing any capital gains. It's not stopping outflows of money regarding this. Lastly, let us discuss the legal problems that people say that crypto is used for money laundering. You know, the biggest asset, the biggest tender that is used for laundering money, it is US dollars, it is INR, it is not Bitcoin, it is not crypto related assets, it's not digital assets. They're at the stage of infancy. So instead of promoting this technology, you are just restricting everything and you are not able to control anything. And let us see how this plays out in future, but it has a lot of underlying use cases. And as as the time goes on, maybe it is a start of bear market again, and legislature would lose focus from cryptos and related industry again. But in future, we can expect some certainty across it. You see UAE adopting it and getting so many registrations, so many companies moving in foreign jurisdiction. If it does not happen in India, India is going to lose on a big opportunity again.
Right, Siddharth. I think that's very true. Some of the things that you mentioned. So, some of the things that you did mention, like 1% on every transaction. I think that's quite too high. I didn't know about that, and that would definitely move everything out of here. And also, how does the government actually plan to enforce it? You mentioned that there are so many gaps in trying to enforce it, and with the decentralized nature of it, it's so difficult to track or enforce anything. Like it's almost impossible for anyone to know what kind of crypto assets or what kind of digital assets I have in my wallet. It's very difficult. So how is the government trying to enforce this, and why do you think the government is doing such kind of regulations?
Okay, so firstly, it is not limited to that. So suppose you earn 1 crore in Ethereum and 1 crore on Bitcoin, and you lose 1 crore on Bitcoin. So suppose you took positions in crypto, so basically your total gain is zero, right? But government says give me 1 crore tax, 30% tax on the money that you earned on Ethereum. So like I have to pay 30 lakh, but losses are yours. So you cannot set off the losses. With respect to enforcement, they only say that declare it. If you don't declare it, you are committing an offense. But I do not know how they are going to track it. No one knows in the world how can they track it. How can you track the transactions on blockchain which are pseudo anonymous in nature? And that is the biggest concern of governments. As to we need to understand that India is a trade deficit country. Being a trade deficit country, it needs to preserve its currency, it needs to regulate its currency heavily. We are not a developed nation, we import a lot, we export less. The government is coming up with these regulation stringent laws because of hawala transactions that are taking place. So instead, so what I need to do today, earlier it was like I had to take fiat out of India, it was very, very difficult. How do I move money around? Now it has become very easy, and you see a lot of millionaires moving out of India, and maybe they are not showing their wealth. Maybe they have a lot of assets tied to crypto. I remember back during monetization in 2016, a debate was happening. Okay, so what is going to happen to Bitcoin? And people were, I personally know a lot of people who were changing Bitcoin for fiat and fiat for Bitcoin. And I saw an opportunity there because I thought that the price of Bitcoin would increase. And you see, when I'm really sorry, so there is a power cut. So you see, when this demonetization was promulgated, what happened? The It shot up because you see the kind of volume of money that was put into Bitcoin. And who knows whether this where this money went, how the flow of money took place? No one knows regarding the same, and I guess it is a huge problem for India. But India needs to embrace this and move, see past it. And that answers your question, right?
Right, right, indeed. So also we've seen like many of these crypto and blockchain firms moving out of India. So if let's say there's a founder who is going to start their own blockchain firm in India, what are the considerations that they need to be mindful of? And so you also mentioned the STO aspect of it, and if I want to launch a token in India, how do I make sure that probably it's not classified as STO, and what are the things that I need to be mindful of?
So can you please repeat your question number one again?
Sure, sure. So I was asking like if there's a founder in India who's starting a blockchain organization, and so what are the things that they need to be mindful of in terms of regulation, what they should carefully consider, and also while launching their own token. So how do we make sure that it does not go into the domain of STO, or how do we tackle that?
Okay. So when you are launching a token in India, and so you would be doing it through some corporate entity, do not mention crypto or blockchain or something like that on the objects of incorporation, because it is going to mean trouble for you, and most likely registrar is not going to register your company. So most of these organizations are being registered as IT companies, and then they uh, perform whatever function they want to perform. Secondly, be very mindful of the tax, man, like how taxes have to be managed, because we have tax code in place which is telling you exactly what you have to do. If you don't do that, then it means that you'll still be liable to pay taxes, and like you want to track everything regarding that. Another consideration is to not make it a Ponzi scheme. Even if you are making it a Ponzi scheme or like implementing it, so we saw a lot of node-based projects in the last bull run. The worst one being strong nodes, where they promise you like crazy returns, and I do not think those kinds of returns are possible anywhere in the world. It means that this is a Ponzi, and it has to be implemented in such a way that it does not come out as Ponzi, because otherwise you are committing committing an offense. So in India, you can become small and just start a small company. It is cheapest to start a company in India. Like if you want to incorporate, it costs less than 30,000, compliance is included. But if you want to move to Dubai, it might cost you anywhere around 5 lakh, 6 lakh, 7 lakh INR, which is a huge difference. So do not think about implications of staying in India versus abroad. I do not think that is the biggest matter. You just need to be compliant with the minimal, the advertisement code, or whatever for that matter. The interaction of DAO with DAO is something which is very, very important, and I have worked a lot on it. So, how do you interact with DAO and INR? So in between, what you do is you have this entity, an Indian entity, which acts like exchanges. So the DAO, this particular entity basically deals with USDT, and contracts are in such a way that the buyer and this corporation has principal agent relationship. Now the principal orders this particular agent to transfer USDT to this particular DAO, and in exchange get some cryptos in return. This has been a very efficient structure because no one can prevent agent from following the instruction of principal unless and until they are explicitly prohibited by law or patently illegal. So in a sense, through this you avoid a lot of tax related issues, especially that 1% thing that I told you about. Now all the liability is on the buyer, not on the seller or the central authority. So the contracts have to be drafted in such a manner so that their liabilities are mitigated, because if they are found liable later, then also they would be charged taxes, or anything else. So they have to be very, very careful. With respect to the second question, with respect to STO, the security token, there are certain steps that are there. So, for example, the money should not be managed by a bunch of people, and they shouldn't have control over all the funds. So it is a comprehensive analysis. It is like a report that we prepare when we analyze a token. So we have to mark check boxes regarding the same, whether all these conditions are met or are not met, and only then we can classify whether it is a security token or not. Basically, focus on utility. Do not focus on like evading the ambit of security token. Just focus on utility. So give utility to the token. So like you see WazirX, what they have done, if you pay gas fees or commissions through our token, you would get a huge discount. Or say Bitcoin is just a decentralized network. No one is managing your money. It is fine. Ethereum is used for coding and gas fee. Ethereum has basically become the standard. It is fine. But when we see not node projects like strong nodes, it becomes a very difficult jurisdiction. And so basically, the checklists that we have are a trade secret as to how we evaluate it, how it needs to be uh, analyzed. But the basis for the same is Howey's test. Be mindful of Howey's test always, even if you are operating in India, because you never know tomorrow. The authorities might come to you and tell you that okay, like you are liable for such and such taxes, and I don't want you to pay or waste a lot of money just on litigation.
Right, indeed. So also, as we're seeing many of these organizations incorporating themselves outside of India. So what kind of organizational and legal structure do they adopt to be able to then continue to operate in India? Because now they're headquartered outside, but they still need to do operations in India. So how do they manage that?
So, can you elaborate on what kind of management are you talking about? So, are you talking about sourcing work?
No, I mean to say, like, what are the legal implications now for a company, for an Indian company that went outside and incorporated themselves in a foreign country, and now they continue to operate in India. They continue to provide services in India, like an exchange or any other blockchain company. So how does the legal structure work? And uh, because they still need to operate in India. So that's what I'm getting to. What did
Understood.
they save themselves from?
Understood. So now the biggest issue is moving funds from India to outside jurisdiction. So if they stay in India, their bank accounts may be blocked. They might not be able to move the funds. So and they might have to pay a lot of taxes. So all the capital gains are taken outside India. Now the your money is secure. The most important aspect of the same is money, and your money is like very very secure. The only thing they pay in India is the GST maybe, which might be applicable on certain transactions. Maybe some taxes that they charge from local citizens or exchanges, and basically all these transactions are governed by DTAs, double taxation avoidance agreement. So they don't have to pay taxes twice anyway. All the IPR has moved outside India. That is the biggest advantage relating to this. Now, what there are like practically no legal implications regarding the same. It is like any other company that operates in India. So let's say Amazon, which has headquarters outside India, but it has a Amazon India entity in India. It pays its employees through that structure. It does certain transactions. It takes GST. It does everything from that Indian entity, but all its profits are secured outside India. That is the only complication. It like do not think about it as a completely different concept. It is just like any other company that has varying corporate structure. and it has to be analyzed on case by case basis again.
Right. So in doing that, in moving outside, so have they overcome all these regulations, the 1%, the taxation on digital assets? Are they able to overcome all of them or some of them?
Tax regulations are there to stay. So these are governed by source rules. So we need to understand from where the income is being generated. It is generated from inside India. So the source of the activity on, which needs to be taxed happens in India. So they can't overcome those regulations. Earlier it was statutory. Okay, so whereas in if we talk about 1950s, 1960s, so wherever the tax code is applicable, wherever the main entity is, there they would be taxed. But it is no longer the case. Courts consider, okay, so where was the primary activity of business happening? It happens in India. You have to comply with all the tax codes. You have advertisement guidelines. Always remember, in all these companies, in all these structures that we see, there is always a requirement of an Indian director. Without an Indian director, you cannot register a company in India. You cannot have access to basically Indian subcontinent. As soon as company makes a fault, or it does not adhere to whatever codes there are, the director becomes liable for everything. Like why it didn't happen, what like what sort you have not given us details regarding this. So someone has to be held accountable, and director is that person. Apart from that, up, the company outside, even if it becomes like even if it is said that okay they broke certain laws, it becomes very difficult to execute such sort of laws. How do you retrieve money? Whom do you jail? Who becomes liable? So those kinds of things do not happen. So that is why you would see a lot of those betting companies that we see. You'd see a lot of advertisements on Instagram, on social media platform. So what happens is they move bases to say a country like Malta or Mauritius, and they have a small entity in India which basically takes care of all the transactions. Money is moved outside India, but if they become implicated, the directors become responsible and they have to take responsibilities. But once the matter becomes sub judice to court, Indian system, legal system is one of the worst systems ever. Uh, Courts move very slowly, and they, I guess, justice delayed is justice denied is something very apt for India, and you basically never become implicated. But technically speaking, the company operating in India, the director in India is the one who is implicated.
Okay, okay. So essentially, they have distanced themselves from Indian law to a certain extent, and just it's just a worst case preparation if moving outside.
They have not distanced themselves. They still comply with the Indian code. It's
Right,
just that their economic interests are safeguarded.
right. So now, like 1 year later, the government cannot say you did not do this or you did not do that.
To the foreign company, they cannot, but still the Indian
Right.
director
To
would
the
be.
to the Indian one.
Yep.
So, what do you think the government should do to support this? Because this, particularly this Web3 is a very big opportunity for emerging markets in particular, and a very big opportunity for India because of the kind of population we have. But we are seeing this kind of drain happening. What do you think should the government do to prevent this and promote this?
Firstly, I do not understand why the government is fighting this. Ultimately, they'll have to adopt this. So instead of fighting this, why don't you become a crypto-friendly jurisdiction where you give tax benefits to the organizations which incorporate in India, give them global market access, create a sustainable environment. When I go to register a company in this space or some officer comes to know about it, he would continuously harass me. If the laws are strict and we have certainty in regulations, then they won't be able to harass me. So come up with a policy framework, just like UAE did. and encourage the incorporation in India, have the IPR in India. You know what happens? I have a lot of clients and friends who are basically founders. And as soon as the revenue or profits goes above a certain threshold, say a million or something, then they start incorporating company outside India. They move all their assets to India. India becomes nothing but a shell company to do business in India, and all the royalties are paid outside India. So our startup ecosystem is failing. You think that taxing these companies would help you generate a lot of jobs, would give you would be able to provide youth with a lot of opportunities, and you would be able to solve a lot of problems. But by mitigating taxes, you get a lot of funds in India, foreign funds in India. You solve the unemployment problem, and you solve the development issues related to uh, unemployment or companies going outside. Brain drain won't happen if tax benefits or policy benefits are given. It is a sorry state of affairs that even in BJP rule we are on paper we have a lot of startups, but the highest valued startups, the startups which have got the highest value, have bases outside India. And this and the companies are trying to reduce the taxes all over the world so that people start incorporating. See Singapore, see UAE, see n number of jurisdictions, they the kind of benefits they are providing. Why can't we provide such benefits in India? If we are able to provide such benefits to the startup ecosystem, to the blockchain ecosystem, become uh, like blockchain friendly jurisdiction, we have the talent, we have the startups which are working in this space. We have Polygon, like which began in India. And if the laws are friendly, if then India could uh, take a huge advantage regarding the same. They should actually implement some sort of mechanism in which all the states have some sort of office where they cater to, say, blockchain needs, startup needs, or whatever they they can do, so that this particular ecosystem can be supported and can nurture in India. It requires nurturing because Indian government has been against this for such a long time. India, like people do not want to do business, especially in blockchain space in India, and they need to change that narrative. And like countries have managed to do that, why can't India do it? It can.
Right, that's very true. So I could feel a genuine disappointment in your voice. Like, why is India shooting itself in the leg, and why are we not promoting this? So, and what are the currently what are the countries or what are the jurisdictions which are providing very friendly laws, and where do you think it's working out well in terms of regulations?
It's working out well in Switzerland, in Delaware, in US, Malta. UAE recently came up with laws, but still it is in a stage of infancy. But we see a lot of traction happening in UAE. Every jurisdiction has its own advantages and disadvantages. If I remember correctly, there is so I advised a client. It was either Portugal or Germany, which has very crypto friendly laws. And you see all the startups or all the companies move in this ecosystem moving in these places. And this trend is going to continue. They provide tax benefits, they provide regulatory benefits, they provide sandboxes so that you can just test your products on real people in a controlled environment. And if India could do the same, we would be the biggest thing. We would not be the next big thing, or we would not be the next in line. We would be the biggest players who control internet. We India is one of the largest outsourcing market in the world. Like companies all over the world source their work to India. Like we have the technical know-how. We have the youth who can drive this market. Only if the legislature realizes this and implements the laws, then we can see that. And we have to follow all those models. We have something to learn from all those models, whether it be Malta, US, Switzerland, or uh, Germany, or wherever. And we can come up with great laws which support this ecosystem, and we can nurture it.
Right, indeed. So, is there a source of this information, the kind of regulations there are in India? Can you suggest somewhere to access these regulations to learn about them?
I have written a book and I have made it publicly available so that people can benefit from it. It is being updated with respect to recent amendments in law, but I basically share it on my LinkedIn regularly. And you can either follow Nishchal on Twitter. He is also a great source. If you want a comprehensive regulations, I would become I have a book which mentions them, and I can give you the link regarding the same.
Sure, so that link would be very appreciated to learn more about this. And with that, thank you very much for appearing on the show. So you gave a very unique perspective. So we've had mostly founders and other people who are working on the technology end of it or marketing end of it, but to learn about the legal end of it was quite interesting. So thank you very much for appearing on the show today.
I understood that. I saw a lot of I saw a lot of your videos, and thought that this would be this has not happened before. I basically have a tech company of my own where, as I told you, it's a decentralized. So basically our vision is Berkshire of blockchain. So we just hold great assets and let them mature. But I thought that legal thing is something which would benefit, which would be more beneficial for the audience.